It feels weird going live without you in the same room.
Right?
Yeah,
Maybe we'll giggle less.
probably.
Not likely.
Yeah.
They can
Just
find
a
us.
heads up, I am being enormously censored. And I'm sure after this live, we are going to be massively censored, as we are going to be talking about today. We're getting creative, friends. We are getting creative. So if you can help us out, like, comment, and share. We're going to move over to Instagram next and talk about this. Since we aren't in the same room, we can't do it all at once today. Welcome to the week of July 13th, Christine.
I can't believe it.
What in the world is happening? They are stepping up their game like nobody's business. And they're getting caught in their desperation yet again. But what's going on that you think everybody needs to know? Let's talk about kids and vaccines. What is happening?
There's so much happening with kids this year. So what we're looking at is they are pushing for mandatory vaccines for kids 12 and above.
Say
So
V.
So
Don't say the
already,
word.
Yeah. Oh, they are already pushing this for some universities. They are requiring this for any students who are going to be in residence. And then they're now talking about high schools in September. Is it going to be required for kids age 12 and up to be mandatory for them in order to attend in-person learning? And then the other big push is they're already talking about, and they're doing trials right now for children age 12 and under. Like to 6 months old. Some of the kids in the trials are 6 months old. So they're looking to do this for that age group. And they're talking about it becoming potentially available in Ontario as early as September or October.
So let me ask you this. What in the world goes through a parent's brain to allow a 6-month-old child to be a part of a B trial? Sorry, we're going to be doing clever things today. Trial.
Lack of informed consent. That is exactly what's happening. They're not giving informed consent to parents, because if they were, no one would even go near these things for their kids, not even for their dogs. Like,
but why do you think it is that people are not grasping the fact that they are part of a trial, and that this trial does not conclude, not any of the brands, until November, December of 2023?
And I've even heard 2024 now.
Well, and not to mention that these criminals are creating now mRNA flu Vs.
Right. So 2 things. One is we do know, even though the trials are not finished, the experts are saying that it's very well-known fact now that the benefits do not outweigh the risks for any young, healthy adult, and especially children. And so how they are getting these, how they could ever mandate these through an emergency authorization, because they're not approved. They're just emergency use authorized in Canada. How they can push this on to someone else, because they're saying, well, maybe these kids getting them could, give us herd immunity, which we know you can achieve if the product does not prevent transmission. So we know we can never get. I mean, for the flu V we've had for years. I mean, some years it was like, most years it was 10% efficacy, and that was a good year.
Yeah, but in that regard, that was attenuated virus. That was not mRNA technology.
So now they're actually bringing mRNA, the flu jab, here to Canada. So the federal government, Trudeau, has given $200 million to a company in Mississauga, Ontario, to build a plan and develop an mRNA flu jab. So now we're not just talking about the COVID jabs having the mRNA, which we already know is a huge problem with, especially in young people, with the myocarditis, the pericarditis, the blood clotting, all the other issues we're seeing, thrombocytopenia, like the blood clotting issues that they're having with that. We are now going to be putting this technology into the flu jab, which we already know didn't work for before, and now it's going to cause more problems than it even did then.
But don't forget, the flu disappeared this year. So what do we even need it for?
Well, after the pandemic's over, it'll come back.
Of course it will. It's so ridiculous. Like, and hypocritical. It just doesn't even add up. And the name of the company is Resilience Biotechnology, for anybody that's wondering, the new one there in Mississauga. So I'm sure we're going to find a lot of conflict of interest tied up in some of our public health officials with this new company.
Yeah, I wonder whose husband
Anyways,
will be working.
I wonder. And how deep the Dalla Lana School of Medicine is ingrained into it. Like, and good call on that live the other day, because people are starting to talk now about the
conflicts of interest with the Dalla Lana School of Public Health. Yes, with
right.
David Fissman being there, and Dr. Eileen Davila, medical officer of health, being there. And what was it, like 19 out of 27 of them or 24 or something of the science table are all in either working for or graduates of the Dalla Lana School of Public Health. So the entire science table for Ontario, we are the laughing stock of the world right now. I mean, Ontario's even the laughing stock of Canada. They're all running around now. All the other provinces have removed all the mask mandates. Yet Ontario, we have issued this Reopening Ontario Act to keep us locked down. So the irony is they're using a name called Reopen Ontario Act to close us down. The name doesn't make sense for what it's causing. So we're still, like in Toronto, still in basically full lockdown. We cannot eat inside restaurants, anything like that. Whereas all the other provinces are wide open. And now the rest of the world's like, they're just laughing at us and saying, like, what is wrong with Ontario?
China. What is wrong with Ontario in China?
Yeah, and they're making jokes.
It's horrible.
Ontario, where the science is different.
Yeah.
Science than the rest of the world, and it's a huge joke on Twitter. Like this week, is that the science in Ontario is different from the rest of Canada, and I guess
from the rest of the world.
Yes, it is,
because it's where the marching orders come down for the rest of the country, right? So it's crazy. It really is. It really is. Now, I know we spoke last time. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about with the School of Dalla Lana, we did a live on it a few weeks ago, I believe, and Christine broke down the history of how it was created, how it was started. It was developed back in the early 1900s by none other than the Rockefellers, and their donation was about
$650,000 in 1924. Was a lot of money.
A lot of money, but coincidentally, it ties into Sanofi. It's attached to Sanofi, as well as the U of T. And who is deeply ingrained in the U of T? That would be Mr. Gates. So Christine and I talked about that a few weeks ago. You can catch that somewhere on my page or wherever you need to, even YouTube. I think it's on YouTube still. But also, then we've also figured out that there are 3 globalist finishing schools. So number 1 is Johns Hopkins, number 2 is Harvard, and number 3 is none other than the School of Dalla Lana. So most of your public health officials, the majority, are now parachuted in from these 3 schools to bring forth an agenda. Coincidentally, if you want to tie in my interview with Rachel Huffman for Farmers for Freedom, their public health official was parachuted in from Harvard in the middle of Norfolk County. Now, I don't know if you've been to Norfolk County. I love Norfolk County. It's a beautiful little farming community, but no city guy is going to just say, hey, I think I'll go and apply to be a public health official for Norfolk County. No. He was parachuted in, and he was there to, there was a trial run in there because they had different CV regulations than the rest of the farming communities. And Norfolk County is the third largest producer of food in Ontario, I believe. Canada? Is it Canada or Ontario? I keep getting it confused. Anyways, the onion has many layers, friends, and one agenda tops out with another. So here we go. Let's talk about what's going to happen when the kids go back to school. What's going on?
Well, they're calling for them to still in Ontario if we even do open. We were closed for most of last year while the rest of the Canada was wide open. But we were closed, and we are looking to, if we open in September, they're looking to, hopefully they're hoping to get vaccine COVID clinics in the schools for the 12 and above to make sure everybody's got their 2 jabs. And to make it easy, like if parents couldn't make it out to one of the clinics, they're going to do it right in your kid's school in September, as well as they're still going to have to wear masks and distance and all that stuff.
Right. So let's take it back just a little bit, because prior to, my mic is hitting my hair. Oh, sorry, Christine, don't type. Don't type while you're talking. Prior to this, we dealt with something similar, probably a year or so ago, where we discovered public health being in schools was illegal to begin with. And no one knew. So they just kept allowing it, which created an environment for it to be okay. And then they started suspending and whatnot. But even that was illegal. And you represented a bunch of parents in this regard. Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yes, I think it was from 2017 to 2019. Well, in 2017, they amended the Immunization of School Pupils Act, and they changed it to make it have a self-incriminating section on it. So you had to self-incriminate to sign this affidavit in order to send your child to school without disclosing their medical records. So I represented a lot of parents, and they were not all parents who did not use the jab. Some of them did use the jab, but they just didn't want to give their records to public health. And this ties into another story, actually. So with the Ontario doctors that we'll talk about next. So the parents didn't want to give this information. And we discovered that they were using this Immunization of School Pupils Act to enforce these disclosure of private medical records and coerce parents into disclosing the private medical records. And we discovered that the act itself does not give the public health officials the authority to suspend a student. So they don't have the authority to enforce their own act. So they're required to go over and say to the principal, hey, principal, can you suspend this student for us? Because the mom didn't give me the papers. And so the problem became, then we went to the principal and said, okay, can you explain which act and which section of that act are you suspending the student under? And the principal couldn't answer, the superintendent couldn't answer, because a principal is the only person in Ontario who can suspend a student. The only person, not public health, not anyone else, not even the police can't suspend your student. The principal's the only one who can. But the principal cannot do it for another act. There's nothing in the Immunization of School Pupils Act that says a principal can suspend. And there's nothing in the Education Act, which is the only act that a principal could suspend under. There's nothing in there to say that they can suspend. And so what was happening was, public health was repeatedly suspending these kids for 20 days back to back to back. Some kids were suspended for 60 days. 5-year-old kids in kindergarten suspended for 60 days because mommy wouldn't sign a paper. So they were also getting the maximum suspension is 20 days is allowed in Ontario for any student. So if you go to school with a knife or
and that's a maximum, like that's the hardest suspension you can get.
Yes, and if you get that suspension under the Education Act, there's even a portion of the act that states that these children still have rights, and so they, even if they came to school with a weapon or they were violent or they were caught selling drugs or whatever at school, there it's actually like listed in the Education Act which kinds of things you can be suspended for and how much time you can get. But during that time, if you have a suspension of 20 days, that's the maximum you're allowed in Ontario, and the school is responsible to give you alternative learning resources at home through the duration of that suspension to make sure the child doesn't fall behind academically. However, if you're suspended for your mom not signing the paper and giving your private medical records to public health, then your child is not afforded any of those rights that criminals are afforded. And so it was just absolutely ridiculous. So I was going in and appealing these suspension cases at the Health Service Appeal and Review Board, and I was representing the parents. And every single case they were settling in the without prejudice, like off the record case conference. And if they thought they could beat you, they would go to a hearing and then they would make it a public, record. But if they didn't, if they knew they couldn't beat you, so it's kind of like we were talking about the court
It's the
system
same
the
thing
other
now.
week. It's the same thing. So they
Yeah,
go
they're
in and they
sneaky
size
and
you
they're
up.
shady.
Yeah, they size you up, and the whole system, it's like going to Las Vegas and thinking you're going to win. The house always wins. And so the same with these legal procedures, they're all set up this special way that you cannot possibly win most of the time. So it's exactly what happens. But we got settlements for almost every one of them. We got, the parent was allowed to cross off that whole section, or the parent just didn't sign it at all. And they didn't have to attend the education session, which has now been taken down. But they took it down before COVID, some of the places, because it was ridiculous. Like their own records show that there was no conversion rate from these re-education sessions. It was just
Because
ridiculous.
it was the worst. I went into this education session just to go and check it out. I almost had to claw my eyes out. It was that bad. And if you go in and you know your stuff, like, no wonder there's a 0% conversion rate. It's
It was
awful.
a means of punishment more than actually education.
Oh,
It was just
I
a
know.
hurdle between you and your charter, right? Here's a barrier, here's another barrier. And the funny thing is, this education session was so great. We applied to get a copy of it, and they wouldn't give it to us.
Mhm.
We had to go through a Freedom of Information request and fight for it.
Yep. I just went in and did the course just to see. It was half an hour of my life I will never get back.
So, that ties into my doctor story. So I was just happened to be going through the legislation for some reason, and I saw that, what was it? They just came out with new legislation. And I'm like, wait, that's new. They have this new legislation that they just put through in June. Let me find it. And yeah, they just came out with it in June. And essentially what they're saying is it mandates anyone giving a COVID jab,
Mhm.
they have to report all kinds of like information to public health directly. So that's kind of a funny story. So back in 2018, when we still had the Wynne government,
Yeah.
right before we got rid of them, they said they ran through some legislation that forced family physicians, because they give most of the jobs in Ontario, it forced them to report directly to public health every jab they give to every person. And family physicians said, oh, no, we're not doing that. Like, that's actually a violation of the Privacy Act. Like, we are not couriers of information. Like, we're not, and we can't be responsible if this information gets lost or sent to the wrong place or whatever. So they have an obligation to keep this private. So what happened is, when Doug Ford had his campaign, his election campaign, on his platform, one of the things was, if you elect me, I will come in and I will halt the rule on reporting the immunizations. for doctors. And doctors and the OMA, they were thrilled. The OMAs, the Ontario Medical Association, they were all thrilled and they were fighting for this. So Doug Ford got it. And the very first thing he did, he halted the rule on that. He cut it down, and that was the end of that. However, now fast forward to 2020. Now, who's not allowed to give any of these jabs? Family doctors.
Your doctors.
Your doctors have been absolutely blocked. Like, there's a lot of even mainstream media speaking out about this. Family doctors are saying in Ontario, why are we not allowed to be given these jabs? So the public health has done a hostile takeover. They've popped up all these clinics. They've hired their own people, and they're not allowing family doctors to have access to this stuff. And it's to give them ultimate control. And so now, every time, so just in, what was it, June 3rd of 2021, this new legislation went through that nobody even noticed, and it's called the COVID-19 V Reporting Act of 2021. There's an actual act, and all it says in there is that every V shall ensure the following information is disclosed to the ministry in respect of every individual for whom the V administers a V, and every individual for whom the V declines to administer a V, unless the individual has not supplied the information. So when you go in to get your jab, you have to sign a 2-page waiver, and you think you're signing like for your informed consent. It's not. What you're signing is essentially saying that you're giving them permission to take all of your personal information that you're giving them, and they can put it into this Panorama database that we have in Ontario and in Canada. And they've been trying to get this thing up and running
for years.
Forever. And so, yeah, this is a big thing now. So you have to provide your name of the person, your phone number and address, your date of birth, your sex. Why do they need to know your sex if they're giving you that, right? Like, really?
Yeah. And how you cooperated with getting
They
the
write
jab.
it all down. Yes, but public health has historically always done that, right? And so, so then your health card number. So they're tracking and tracing you through this product. And people don't understand the value of big data. Big data is a hot commodity. There's a lot of money to be made in big data. And so this is what we're looking at. They now have passed an actual law, cut the doctors out, and it totally ties into what they did in 2018 with the family doctors refusing to disclose that information. And now they're being punished. They're being gone around. They're being cut out. They're like redundant now in this whole process. And public health has taken it over completely. And I actually posted about it on the Children's Health Defense Canada website. If you go to news, it's the very top item where it says private medical information is legislated into computerized tracking system bypassing Ontario doctors.
And that's children'shealthdefense.ca in case you're looking for the Canadian one. It's .ca.
Yeah, and under news, it's the very first item. If you click on news, it's the very first item. And it states, it's actually in our newsletter. I just sent the newsletter out today, and it's in there. Yeah, all the information that you have to share. And and also has the story on there about how Doug Ford, his cabinet halts the rule on reporting these things, and how they're tied together. And when you kind of connect all the dots, then you start to say, okay, now that makes perfect sense.
They're all tied in. They're all tied in, but they're pointing your attention at 45 different things that you can't bring it all into one big package. So that's what we're trying to do here for you. Sorry to interrupt. Divide and conquer. 100%. Divide and conquer on multiple levels. Race, health, freedom, whatever.
And they don't want you to have any informed consent for anything, because the more educated you are about anything, the more likely you are not to do what they're wanting you to do, because what they want you to do is wrong most of the time. Wrong for you. What they want you to do is maybe right for them.
I'm going to tell you, though, there is a lot more of us than they're telling in the mainstream.
That's
Like
why they're not
the,
letting us in the mainstream.
that's why they're not letting us in the mainstream. And I don't know about you, but in the last 2 weeks, I got back from Vancouver, and the Freedom Organ, I threw a massive Canada Day party, but ever since that, people can't get on my Instagram. There's nothing like, and just so you guys know, Christine and I are going to hop over on Instagram after this one and redo this again. For those of you looking for Nicole Siratek, it's Nicole Siratek at protonmail.com, or it's nicole.siratek at protonmail.com. But I'll be doing an interview with her this week as well, again, because we're going to talk about her IV, what does she call it? The IVM treatment. So she's going to talk to us with regards to that. So we're really excited. So hop on the Instagram. You can find us there, unless they remove us, which is probable. It could happen. Okay. So let me ask you this. Can you, as an individual, still deny being a part of the Panorama database? Is that still an option, or are we all just screwed?
You can opt out of it. You actually can write a letter to public health and ask to be removed from any further consent, because they have what's called implied consent. So if you just phone them up, they record everything you say at public health, and then they add it there. And the other thing a lot of people don't know, and I think I mentioned this on our last live, one of them, that when you are pregnant and you go to have your prenatal screenings, so your appointments, even through midwife, every blood test that they do, they send, and even your doctor, your family doctor, they send the results to public health as well as you, and it goes on your file. And unless you specifically state, I'm not doing that, then it goes there. You have to say to your doctor, every test you get, every breath you take, I feel like it's a song.
Every time you walk through the door,
I'll be watching you.
you
So
have to decline.
sure everything you do at any mainstream doctor's office, you need to say to them, is that going to public health? Because I do not consent. Everything they do. If they want to do, like they push now so many tests, like they send all the records to public health of every blood test they do. So while you're pregnant, in the end, they do an STD test on you, and they send the results of that to public health. They're what they call reportable diseases. There's all kinds of them. Like when my kids had whooping cough, I took them into the doctor and made sure he tested them. And that's a story on its own. We need a whole live for that story. But when he tested them and it was positive, he had to report me to public health.
Yeah.
And then they only wanted to collect on children who were not jabbed.
Right. And that's, friends, how they skew the data.
Yes. And I said that to the public health lady. I said, but I had a lot of kids living in my house who were not jabbed, and some who were, and they only wanted to collect the information for the unjabbed. And I said to her,
sick.
I'm a nurse. And I said, what is this going to do to your data? You're collecting only half of the data. So of course it's going to look like all the unjabbed kids are causing this, but they're not. My kids caught it from the jabbed kids. Write it down properly.
This is a good question from Christopher here. What about informed consent? Isn't the onus on the doctor?
100%.
You would think so.
It is. It actually is. And again, if anybody wants to go to the website, to the Children's Health Defense.ca website, what you need to do is go there and hit the little button that says sign up for the newsletter, because I just put that on the newsletter. Everything we're talking about today, I put in today's newsletter. And I think it was even last week I put it in about the laws. Informed consent is a law, and it's informed consent's a law, and it was actually decided in the Supreme Court of Canada in the 1980? It was 1980, exactly. Yes. So they said
your brain is just photographic. I just some days I just go, what? Where did that come from? This woman can pull dates and recall legal literature and medical literature at the drop of a hat. Like, she's something else. But yes, 1980. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they had what happened? They said Yeah, there was a whole case on this where they said that that informed consent is required by law, and this like doctor, he had done a surgery on someone and he hadn't told him of all the risks, and one of these was a known sort of risk that this person could have had, I guess, like a stroke or something, a mini stroke, and it happened. And then this person went and sued him, and he won because they said the onus was on the doctor to provide this. And this was in the Supreme Court of Canada in 1980. And so you can look that up. And I think it's on our website too. I'm pretty sure.
Well, let me ask you this then. With the way the new doctors are coming up now, they don't even know to ask about all of the, like, to describe all of the informed consent because they're not even taught it. They get like what, maybe 10 hours, and I'm being generous, of training on the so how would they even know to give if nothing is required of them above and beyond? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's deliberate. They also don't know how to recognize jab injuries, and that's another big problem.
Look at this. Look at this comment. Thanks, Connie.
Yeah, they are being pressured by the College of Physicians Surgeons of Ontario to not write anything, not write any notes. Like when kids were in school, they were all being instructed not to write mask exemptions.
Well, they still are. They still are. And that's why, you know, when people found out I had a medical exemption to get on that flight out to BC, some people lost their minds. And that's okay. But like I said, I'm grateful to WestJet. I can't even speak today. I'm sorry. WestJet for honoring the human rights code and their policies. So, and they were great. They really, really were great. So thank you, WestJet. Yeah, the WestJet plug. Hey, it could have been easier, but given the circumstances, I understand. Okay, so.
Well, I have the name of the case. If anyone wants to look up the Supreme Court case, it's Reibel versus Hughes. So it's Reibl v. Hughes, Hughs. Hughes.
Awesome.
So Reibel versus Hughes. That's the case of the doctor who was sued by someone and won at the Supreme Court of Canada, where this sets case law. So anytime you go to your doctor and they don't give you informed consent, you should write to the College of Physicians and Surgeons and report them. It doesn't matter where you go. If you go any clinic, any walk-in, any emergency room, and you're not given full informed consent, like, okay, so you should definitely do this treatment, but then they fail to tell you the side that could happen, the other side that's what they call the known risks, what are listed in the product monograph, for example. If they don't give you that information, then you just say to them, you didn't get informed consent. You write a letter to the CPSO, and well, that's if you're in Ontario, there's a College of Physicians Surgeons for each province. And you write them and you put in a complaint against any doctor. You just get their name. This is the only way you're going to force them to give informed consent. We fought for years for public health to give informed consent, including the fact that you can have an exemption. In Ontario, they were not telling parents they could be exempt. In fact, they were lying and saying that their children couldn't come to school unless they participated in the program.
Wow.
Coercion. Bullying and coercion. People without power rule with bullying and coercion, and now they've got all kinds of power. They're never giving it back, ever. Doug Ford,
well, that was the plan to begin with. We knew that, and we knew it was coming years ago when we would go into the hearings and fight them. And they couldn't give a flying anything about children dying or anything. They didn't even make eye contact with you. They're not human. Their souls are gone. It's disgusting what has happened.
Well, now we have that new medical officer in Ontario. You know, David Williams looks like a saint now.
Well, I'm
This
sure
new
that's
guy,
just for perception purposes.
Dr.
I'm waiting.
Kieran Moore, is horrible. He's the one who's pushing for all the 12 and above to get done before they start school in September. He's calling for it.
So what can parents do? What do we do? Where do we go? What do we
Two
do?
things. There's two things. You can fight this legally through the courts, and you can fight back by, educating and pushing back against. Contact your school board, contact your MP, your MPP, contact your city councilors, contact, write letters to, the Ontario legislature, and let them know that you do not consent to this. If you don't want to jab your kid to send them to school in September, just put it out there that, you know what, the science so far is showing that the benefits do not outweigh the risk for this age group. 100% no. You've got all these kids now with myocarditis and pericarditis, and they're saying, oh, it's just mild. There's no such thing as a mild heart attack.
100%. And don't forget, if you
in a healthy child, if somebody came and told me my child's heart was enlarged, I wouldn't be thinking, well, maybe I'll take a nap before I go to the hospital. No, I'd be like, this is an emergency. And I'm a nurse, so it is an emergency.
Well,
if you're having a heart swelling issue, go to the hospital. Well, probably, I don't know about that. They'll probably make it worse and tell you it's no relation to the jab.
Right, just like the seizures weren't, but now it's normal, so don't worry about it. You know, your kids are having seizures over vaccine reactions, but it's cool.
I really like the part, though. My very favorite part of everything that's happened to date is when the people were all getting the jab to travel. They were getting the AstraZeneca.
Half my family did. They're like, no, I just got it so I could travel. So then why don't you wait till it's actually...
Yeah, but who cares? Now they can't travel because they're all being recommended against traveling if they got that one.
Yeah.
Karma.
Unbelievable. Okay. There's only one word to sum that up again, and it's trials. You're in the trials. Like, EAU is not FDA approved, friends. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this. People will tell you it's approved. It is not approved the way you think it's approved.
It's authorized for emergency use only.
Yeah, they're only learning what it's going to do to you. And that's why there are so many adverse reactions, which if you are a recipient of a mild to severe adverse reaction, go to vaxtracker.com and fill that out and report it, because it's still only 1% being reported. A little bit more than with the COVID, but doctors are being told not to report it. Okay?
And if you're being pressured, if you're being pressured to get the jab for work, for university, for anything, what you need to ask your employer or whoever's asking you to do this, you have to ask them, did your company receive funding from the Immunization Partnership Fund that for increasing confidence, acceptance, and uptake of COVID-19 jabs? It's literally a Government of Canada program where they had to apply by March of 2021. There was the deadline. If you go and look up Immunization Partnership Fund on the web, you will find that they were paying out $9 million in total to all these people. So you could get it if you're a university. You could get this money if you were an employer, if you were some kind of organization. If you were a pop-up brand new organization and just wanted some money, you could apply to this. And all you had to do is submit a letter to them stating how are you going to increase confidence, acceptance, and uptake of this product. And so they didn't require you to be a medical expert or have any medical training at all. It was all about what kind of power did you have over the general public. So were you like a big manufacturing company? So you hold all these people's, livelihoods in your hand. Oh yeah, we'll give you the $500,000 because you can leverage a lot of compliance. And this is what they're doing. So
and it doesn't just stop at these corporations. This is bleeding into children's sports associations.
100%.
Okay? So if you're watching these associations start pushing this massive campaign against you know what, you can probably guarantee that they've applied for the money. They sold their soul at the expense of the children. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Trials, and they're selling the kids out.
Yeah, and the trials they're not doing is to see how many people are already immune. And they did a very small one in Canada. They actually did a very small study here. And I think it was in BC, wasn't it? I'm sure we talked about this before, that the majority of the population have antibodies already. The majority.
Yeah. Well, and that's the case. I mean, and do you know why, though, too? That special CV virus hit Canada a lot earlier than what they said it did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you combine that with them using like so the instructions that were given for them to certify someone as dead, for any reason. I mean, you could be hit by a car on your way to work and you die. And the instructions given to the coroner's offices were that they can mention the possibility that the death may have been influenced by COVID, even though it was caused by another disease or, and getting hit by a car. So it was about, we have to keep reminding people that it's about dying with COVID, not of COVID. So you've got all these high numbers of people, oh, they all died of COVID. So that really puts your numbers of deaths up there. And then, but if you go in and you look at like Dr. Denis Rancourt has been saying since the start, the all-cause mortality, if you go in and look at the number of people who died in Canada last year compared to this year, there's no difference.
No.
Like, did 5 more people die out of, the
No.
37.5 million we have? Yeah, probably. Maybe 5 less even. And so the actual overall death in the country hasn't changed at all. Just which basket we put it into has changed. And the basket doesn't matter. The overall mortality rate, like people, they actually said the average age of death from COVID was, I think, 86, which is 3 years older than the average life expectancy age in Canada, which is 83. Mm-hmm. And I think, wasn't that Jason Kenney who pointed that out last year?
I have no idea. I remember the conversation, but I can't put names and
but those are actual numbers. And so when we look at that and we go, so this is the stuff that parents and people, in the public, they're being bombarded with this through like all the news, the mainstream news. They're all being paid by the government. They're not being paid to write certain stories. They're being paid because they're always whining like, oh, we just don't have enough money and we need, the government grants and whatnot. But once they're on the take, they're going to only report the news. So the Liberal government actually gives the most money to the news.
Shocking.
So that's why they have the most push. Like when they're going for election, they write more favorable things about the Liberal government. So right now, and then of course, when there's a wee scandal, they write nothing. It's like crickets.
Well, and it's funny too, like just being a new organization as well. You've noticed that with the health freedom organizations, like we've put in a lawsuit here and there, whatever. And then all of a sudden there's this new group with a similar name.
Lots of them
being funded. I know there's like 3 to our 1 and it's all similar named, but they're all government funded and they're just all about health.
Helping the Children Foundation, helping
promoting
the
but they're
all promoting the whole agenda. Exactly. And you know what else? Speaking of the WE Foundation, it just came out, wasn't it last week where it was disclosed that David Fisman
let's talk about him.
By the WE Foundation. He was getting paid by them. Like, talk about Dalla
Who isn't he getting paid by? He's a walking conflict of interest.
Like he's getting paid
But hey,
by everyone.
Let's put him in charge of our schools. Like get out of here. The science advisor for the unions, that's what he is, right?
Mm-hmm. And he's also on the COVID table.
Of course he is.
He's on the science table for Ontario. And he's also it came out a long time ago that he was also being funded by the teachers unions to keep the school closed. Yeah, he's on Pfizer. Mm-hmm. What was the other one he was on? He was getting paid by another one.
There were quite a few on that list.
But pharmaceutical companies. There was a couple of pharmaceutical companies on there. There was the WE Foundation. Like a whole list came out. And
Yep.
he's just so vile about it on Twitter.
Oh, he's
He's
so
on there,
gross.
but he blocks. You know what he does? He blocks everyone on Twitter
Yeah, he does.
who doesn't say what he wants them to say. Like, talk about censorship, right?
Yep. I'm just looking for that list. I know it was
Oh, we
posted.
posted it. Yes. Where did
We
we
did
post
post it, and now do you think I can remember where it is? Sorry, everyone. Oh, here. Oh, here it is. The Canada Pension Plan, the
Oh,
We
right.
Foundation, JP Morgan Chase, Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, Ontario Nurses Association, AstraZeneca,
Yes.
Pfizer,
Yes,
and
friend.
Click Health.
Oh, my dear Lord.
Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't end there either, friends. Like, it's just,
Well, and he also
yeah.
gets paid by Dalalana School of Public Health because he's like a professor there, right?
Yeah. Again, funny how that met up.
Yeah. They are. And you know, they're all like these medical officers of health. If they work at the Dalalana School of Public Health, they have to
Oh,
disclose their salary they're getting from being a medical officer of health. If it's for the Sunshine List, they don't have to disclose how much the University of Toronto is paying them to be in the Dalalana School of Public Health.
true. Time for
How
some
much do you think they're
FOIAs.
getting?
It's time for some FOIAs, but it's
Yep.
time for public action to come into play.
Yep.
We have a lot of FOIAs coming up, but we're going to need a lot more people to take action on this,
Oh,
because if
shocking.
we bombard them,
This one
right?
was parachuted in from Harvard.
Yeah, I
Shocking.
thought you'd like that. I thought you'd like that. There is something that I am forgetting to ask you. Oh, vaxtracker.com, you guys. It's in the ticker along the bottom of the screen for those of you that were asking how to report any side effects or adverse events from
And it's on our
the.
website too. It's
It
on our
is.
website. So we have a slider on the front page, homepage of children'shealthdefense.ca. There's a slider. You just click the button that says report vaccine injuries here. Report it.
Right. And just for the record, VaxTracker was created by a Canadian software company and is being run through Children's Health Defense in the States now, as well as many other organizations, because it's time that all of that info came back to the people. Put the power back in your hands. And in order for actual independent research and study, no one owns this information. We're relying on you, because we know doctors will refuse to input this sometimes.
And in
So
Canada, we're not allowed to self-report. So if you have a vaccine injury, they won't take your report from you. It has to be only through a medical personnel, and they're being discouraged from reporting. So that's why you have to do it through VaxTracker. You won't be censored. They won't filter. I mean, Canada, they take the reports only from the medical professionals some of the time, and then they water it all down and filter it all out, and then they go, oh no, we're not talking, no, and then you have like 800 reports, and by the time they filter through it all, they go, oh look, we had 2 vaccine injuries this year. Out of like 800. It's like, really, who gets to decide which one is related and not? We should get all the data and get to decide.
Eva, it's Vax with 2 X's, VaxXTRACKER.com. And it's, for those of you that are just catching up, VaxTracker is in the ticker going across the bottom of the screen. So it's all there. Yeah, I can put it in the comments. Hold on one sec here.
Or it's on the website. After this is done and you can't find it, just go to the children'shealthdefense.ca website and you'll see it right on the front of the screen.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh. Yeah, so we're being censored again. It won't let me post comments to my page. So that's why it's written in the ticker along the bottom of the screen, guys. Yeah, no problem. I think that's all we wanted to talk about today. We've got lots more to talk about next week, but we're rounding out the hour and we still have to run over to, I know it's the audio. I don't know what's going on with the audio. Can you hear that clicking noise?
Yes, that's just started.
I know. So we're going to go hop over on Instagram. If you want to come catch that, we're just going to repeat what we just said here for the other audience. I know I'm being censored anyways, but you can catch it over on aforbes78 if you can find me. It's fun. It's so much fun, you guys. Anyways, have a great day and a great week, and we will catch up with you again next week. And if something pops up that's imperative, you'll see our crazy faces again soon. Have a great day, guys. Okay, bye.
Bye.